समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
As Donald Trump throws Ukraine under the bus, or rather a T-90 tank, threatens to grab Greenland from NATO ally Denmark, his own NATO ally Denmark, and brings the Europeans literally to tears, telling them they are on their own to face a rampant escape to victory Vladimir Putin, it is time to raise some questions. The first, what we asked in the week the invasion began, in this 26 February 2022 national interest. Please see it on your screens. I will also share a link with you with the description. Ukraine gave up its nuclear stockpile following the Budapest Memorandum of 1994 in return for security guarantees from Russia, Europe, and the US, three of them. It must regret it. The first of the three invaded it, that's Russia. The second was running for cover, Europe, and even ruining the loss of cheap Russian gas. And the third, looking helpless as Putin's tanks probed Kiev's outskirts. This story has now moved. Now, the third, the US wants Ukraine to concede 1/5 of its territory, forget NATO membership or any other security guarantees, unless, of course, it signs away half its mineral wealth to the US. As the billion plus Sholay fans in India will see it, it's a deal from Gabbar Singh's playbook. In fact, in its crudity, it sounds more like a street or mohalla thug who you would call a Pada Mastan in Kolkata, a Bhai in a Mumbai slum, and Kaleen Bhaiya or some such mafioso in Mirzapur or elsewhere in the Hindi heartland. In his first month, Trump has only targeted his allies while bringing succor to the adversaries, to Russia directly and to China indirectly, by pretty much indicating that it is entitled to its own zone of influence. In this new Trumperial worldview, to each their own is the principle. Then might is right or jiski lathi uski bhais. Do watch on loop that Trump video addressing Europe and NATO, where he says that their security problems are not America's, as we have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. Every country with any geopolitical stakes, especially in Europe and around China, is watching this with great concern. This includes India. Irrespective of this celebration within the BJP base over the downsizing of Europe and wokeism. The good thing is, India's political and strategic leaders are way smarter than their fan base. Let's examine now how will this new world work. Thomas Friedman says in the New York Times that if Trump takes Greenland, Xi Jinping will take Taiwan and Putin probably parts of the Baltics. I might add to that more of Georgia also. Europe apart, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and all American allies will review the comfort they found in its security guarantees. What if Trump told Japan, give me Okinawa or Hiroshima, or sought a fifth of Australia's mineral resources as a price for the US guarantees? I haven't even mentioned Canada because they have entirely different challenges with Trump's US. Now the question isn't whether Trump will actually carry out all these threats. It is just that sovereign countries can't dismiss these as empty rantings. The trust has been broken. If one Trump can demand protection money or part of your territory, the next, a worse Trump, might want you to become a vassal and pay tribute or be at Beijing or Moscow's mercy. This raises a critical question. I speak as somebody who has been a combatant on this side of the nuclear debate. The other side in this debate aren't the Indian peaceniks who oppose the nuclear weapons ideologically or morally. That was an arguable point on principle, whatever my disagreement. The other side here is the formidable American non-proliferation lobby that kept relentless pressure on India to not nuclearize. In the 1987, 97 decade, you might say that Rajiv Gandhi was in power in 1987 with a big majority, but he had weakened greatly by then. That's why I start with 1987. In the 1987-97 decade, they also found economic, political, and strategic vulnerability and fault lines in India they could run their knife into. India had several weak and unstable governments in that period that often looked like working on daily wages. It was then that this eminent group of intellectuals, its arguments fueled by entitled nuclear powers, arrogance mixed with overwhelming East Coast liberal morality, believed they could force India, then under great pressure, dealing with Punjab and Kashmir insurgencies at their peak, to bury its nuclear weapons dream. The advice we often heard at that point was cap, roll back, and eliminate. Khatam kar do isko. This was also the period of some warlike situations between India and Pakistan, and the warning was what would happen if both of you had the nukes and came to fisticuffs, or that your next war will be like a communal riot, not with tanks and guns or missiles, but with nukes. So understand what's good for you. Stay within your limit. Apni auqat mein raho. At one of these non-proliferation conferences, we also heard a former US ambassador to Pakistan say, "Don't worry if there is a nuclear threat, our fire truck will be there." If I still had his email, I would have considered writing to him to consider sending that fire truck to the Palisades in California instead. This was also the decade when the other acronym dropped in our lives, CTBT, Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. There were multiple high-powered visits from Washington to persuade India to sign it. This when the US itself had not ratified it. Double or multiple standards did not originate with Trump. They were always there. He is merely, to use that much abused word these days, weaponizing them for sovereign rent seeking. Eminent editor and also the author of the brilliant Rear View column in the Indian Express, late Inder Malhotra, also coined a description for these American fundamentalists, Ayatollahs of anti-proliferation lobby. India's leaders were wise to stay the course. The baton passed seamlessly from Nehru down. There was that one genuine Homi Bhabha Vikram Sarabhai disagreement on whether the nukes should be used for deterrence or peace. This passing of the baton seamlessly brought us to a stage where Indira Gandhi could test a device in 1974, and then Atal Bihari Vajpayee closed the issue with Pokhran 2. It is to all of these leaders, whatever their power or whatever their numbers in Lok Sabha then, that we Indians and our future generations owe a big debt of gratitude. Did they have the foresight to know that security guarantees won't matter someday? The truth is, they didn't even care. They were strong and they were prescient, and we should be proud of them. Kim Jong-un must be laughing his guts out at Ukraine and Europe now. Would the Americans let him survive? Would the Americans let him survive even for a week if he did not threaten to nuke either South Korea or Japan in retaliation for the US crossing its red lines? Iran is watching this closely and resolutely. Would Bush Sr. or Bush Jr. have invaded Iraq if it actually had any weapons of mass destruction? Its missiles did not need to reach America. Just a credible threat to Israel or even Saudi Arabia, both within the Scud range, any such credible threat with a nuclear warhead would have done it. Focus on free trade, globalization, Ukraine, and Gaza are not the only issues of the greatest future implications now. It is the fact that Trump has already killed and buried the idea of non-proliferation. Nukes are back as a deterrent. Iran, Saudi Arabia, who knows, even Azerbaijan, Egypt will all be thinking in the Middle East. South Africa and Turkey too. What would you be thinking if you were a leader in Tokyo, Canberra, Jakarta, Manila? Nukes are today a fairly low-tech option and an inexpensive deterrent. If the Pakistanis could build them in 1980s, anybody could do so now. In fact, the Pakistanis might want to revalue their nuclear reserves and let the Ummah know. Now, don't ever accuse me of having given them this idea. Donald Trump may or may not change tack in the course of time. We don't know what he will achieve for America. We can only list his first firm achievement. He has made the nukes great again.